Maya Rodriguez opened her eyes to the smell of burning metal and the taste of blood in her mouth. The transport ship lay in pieces around her, twisted chunks of steel and plastic scattered across the rocky ground. She could hear the hiss of escaping air from broken life support systems and the crackle of electrical fires. Somewhere in the wreckage, her head pounded as she tried to remember what happened. They were on a routine diplomatic mission to the Outer Rim when the engine core failed. The captain had ordered everyone to the escape pods, but Maya had stayed behind to help evacuate the wounded. That was the last thing she remembered before everything went dark. She pushed herself up from the debris, wincing as sharp pains shot through her ribs. Her uniform was torn and stained with blood, but she could move. That was more than she could. Save for the other crew members she found scattered around the crash site. All of them were dead. Maya checked her equipment with shaking hands. Her sidearm still worked, though she only had 2 spare clips. Her survival pack contained basic medical supplies, water purification tablets, and enough food for 3 days. The communication device was completely destroyed. Crushed under a piece of the ship's hull dot, she looked up at the alien sky above her. 2 purple suns hung low on the horizon, casting strange shadows across the barren landscape. The air was thick and hard to breathe, burning her lungs with each breath. According to the ship's navigation system, they had crashed on Xerion Prime, a planet she knew only by its reputation as the most dangerous hunting ground in the galaxy. As Maya searched through the wreckage for more supplies, she heard a low growling sound behind her. She turned slowly, her hand moving to her weapon. A creature the size of a small building watched her from behind a cluster of black rocks. Its skin was covered in scales that shifted color to match the environment around it. Yellow eyes, the size of dinner plates, focused on her with obvious intelligence. The creature stood on 4 powerful legs, each ending in claws that could tear through steel. A long tail whipped back and forth behind it, and Maya could see rows of sharp teeth. When it opened its mouth, this had to be one of the saurians she had read about in the mission briefings, one of the apex predator species that ruled this part of the galaxy. Maya drew her weapon and fired 3 shots at the creature's head. The energy bolts struck its scales and bounced off harmlessly. The saurian made a sound that might have been laughter and began moving toward her with surprising speed for something so large. She ran toward the wreckage of the ship's engine section, her boots slipping on the loose rocks. Behind her, she could hear the creature's claws scraping against stone as it followed. Maya dove behind a piece of twisted metal just as the saurian's massive head crashed through the space where she had been standing. The creature spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "Human female, your species is known for being weak and soft. You will make poor sport, but the hunt must continue. Submit now or will make your death quick." Maya responded by pulling the pin from one of her emergency flares and throwing it at the creature's face. The bright light caused the saurian to rear back, its camouflage skin flickering as it tried to adapt to the sudden change. She used the distraction to run deeper into the wreckage, the ship's cargo. Bay had been carrying mining equipment for the colony worlds. Maya grabbed a plasma torch and several small explosive charges used for clearing rock. She had an idea that might level the playing field, even if it was dangerous. She climbed up onto a pile of debris and waited for the saurian to find her. When it appeared below her, she activated the plasma torch and dropped it onto the creature's back. The intense heat caused the alien to roar in pain and anger, its skin burning where the torch made contact. While the creature was distracted, Maya attached the explosive charges to several large pieces of wreckage positioned above its head. She activated the timer and ran as fast as she could toward the edge of the crash site. The explosion sent chunks of metal flying in all directions, and she felt the shock wave knock her to the ground. When the dust settled, Maya looked back to see the saurian trapped under several tons of debris. Green blood leaked from wounds on its head and neck, and one of its legs was bent at an unnatural angle. It was still alive, but it could no longer chase her. The creature's eyes fixed on her with something that might have been respect. You fight like no human I have encountered before. Most of your kind beg for mercy or die quickly. You think like a predator, not prey. Maya wiped blood from her mouth and checked her remaining ammunition. On my world, we learn to survive, or we die. I choose to survive. The saurian's breathing was becoming labored, but it continued speaking. I am Kethvar, third-rank hunter of the Saurian Warpack. You have earned the right to know my name before I die. What are you called, human? Who fights like a Deathworlder? Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez, Terran Space Marines, she replied, keeping her weapon trained on the creature, even though it was clearly dying. Maya Rodriguez, Kethvar repeated slowly. Remember this name, for you have done something that will change the Great Hunt forever. Any being who survives one full day on Zerion Prime during the hunt becomes a participant rather than prey. The consortium leaders will be forced to acknowledge your right to compete. The creature's eyes closed, and its breathing stopped. Maya stood alone among the wreckage, realizing that her real challenges were just beginning. She had killed one of the galaxy's most feared predators, but there would be others. And according to what Kethvar had told her, she was now part of their deadly game, whether she wanted to be or not. As the purple suns began to set, Maya gathered what supplies she could carry and started walking toward the mountains in the distance. She had less than 18 hours to survive before the 24-hour period ended and her status changed from prey to participant. She intended to make the most of that time. The wind carried strange sounds from the darkness ahead of her, howls, and roars from creatures she could not identify. Maya checked her weapon one more time and kept walking. She was Maya Rodriguez, a human from Earth, and she would not die easily on this alien world. The hunt had begun, and she planned to win. Maya had been walking for 6 hours when she heard the sound of approaching engines. She dove behind a cluster of purple crystals that grew from the rocky ground just as 3 flying vehicles passed overhead. The craft were sleek and black, with energy weapons mounted on their wings. Through the transparent canopies, she could see humanoid figures piloting them. The vehicles landed near the crash site she had left behind. Maya watched through her salvaged binoculars as tall figures emerged from the craft. They wore dark armor and moved with the fluid grace of natural hunters. These had to be members of the Apex Consortium, the collection of predator species that ruled this part of the galaxy. One of the figures knelt beside Kethvar's body and examined the wounds. It stood up and spoke in a voice that carried across the distance, though Maya could not understand the alien language. The group spread out and began searching for tracks, following the path she had taken toward the mountains. Maya continued moving, using every survival technique she had learned. In the Marines, she stepped only on rocks where possible, avoided disturbing vegetation, and used the natural terrain to hide her passage. The gravity on Zerion Prime was stronger than Earth's, making every step more difficult. But she pushed forward anyway. As she climbed higher into the mountains, the air became thinner and colder. The purple suns were setting, and strange sounds echoed from the valleys below. Maya found a small cave and decided to rest for a few hours before continuing. She ate one of her emergency rations and tried to plan her next move. The cave provided shelter from the wind, but it also trapped her if the hunters found her location. Maya placed small pieces of debris near the entrance that would make noise. If disturbed, then settled against the back wall with her weapon ready. She allowed herself to sleep for 2 hours, waking immediately when she heard the sound of movement outside. A creature unlike anything she had ever seen was examining the entrance to her cave. It stood on 6 legs like a giant insect, with a segmented body covered in gleaming black chitin. Multiple eyes on stalks turned to focus on her hiding place, and she could see intelligence in their depths. This had to be one of the Vorthik, the insectoid species that hunted in coordinated groups. The creature spoke in a buzzing voice that sounded like it came from multiple throats at once. "Human female, we know you are inside. The Saurian Kethver spoke of you before his death. You interest us greatly. Come out, and we will make your death educational." Maya remained silent, but she could hear more movement outside. The Vorthik were pack hunters, and this one was not alone. She counted at least 3 different sets of footsteps moving around the cave entrance. They were trying to surround her. She reached into her pack and pulled out the remaining explosive charges. If she was going to die, she would take some of them with her. But first, she needed to understand their capabilities better. Maya threw a small rock toward the back of the cave, making it clatter against the wall. The sound caused an immediate reaction. 3 Vorthik warriors rushed into the cave, their movements perfectly coordinated. They moved as if they shared a single mind, covering all possible escape routes while maintaining formation. Maya realized that fighting them directly would be suicide. Instead, she activated one of the explosive charges and threw it toward the cave entrance. The blast brought down part of the ceiling, sealing the entrance and trapping the Vorthik inside. With her, in the darkness and confusion, Maya activated her emergency light and began moving toward the back of the cave. She found a narrow passage that led deeper into the mountain. The space was too small for the Vorthik to follow easily, but Maya could hear them digging through the rubble behind her. She crawled through the passage as quickly as possible, her knees scraping against the rough stone. The passage opened into a larger chamber, filled with strange plants that glowed with their own light. The air here was warmer and easier to breathe, suggesting this was part of the planet's natural ecosystem. Maya took a moment to drink some water and check her remaining supplies. She had enough food for 2 more days, and half her ammunition left. A new sound reached her ears from somewhere in the chamber. It was different from the Vorthik or the Saurian, more like the howl of a wolf, but deeper and more electronic. Maya moved carefully toward the sound, using the glowing plants as cover. She found a creature that looked like a cross between a wolf and a machine. Its body was covered in both fur and metal plates, with glowing circuits visible beneath its skin. Red eyes scanned the chamber with mechanical precision, and Maya could see that one of its legs had been replaced with a cybernetic limb. This was one of the Grimm, the species that enhanced themselves with technology. The creature was wounded, with green blood leaking from a gash in its side. It was trying to reach a medical kit that had fallen just out of reach. Maya realized this was her chance to gain an ally instead of making another enemy. She stepped out from behind the plants with her weapon lowered. "I can help you reach that medical kit if you promise not to attack me." The Grimm's head turned toward her, and she could see surprise in its glowing eyes. "You would help an enemy? This is not the way of the hunt." "Maybe not," Maya replied, moving slowly toward the medical kit. "But you're hurt, and I need information about this planet. We could help each other." The creature considered this for a moment, then nodded. "I am Jake Morrison, pack warrior of the Grimm. I was wounded fighting the Vorthik when they tried to claim this territory. If you help me, I will share what I know about the other hunters." Maya picked up the medical kit and began treating Jake's wounds. The supplies were designed for alien physiology, but the basic principles were similar to human first aid. As she worked, Jake told her about the other species in the consortium. "The Titans are slow, but nearly impossible to kill," he explained. "They control the mining operations in the southern valleys. The Nethys are energy beings who can pass through solid matter, but they need special equipment to maintain their forms. The Saurians are the most numerous and aggressive, but they rely too much on brute force. Maya finished bandaging Jake's wounds and sat back against the cave wall. How many hunters are there total? 43 at the start of this hunt, Jake replied. You killed Kethvar, which leaves 42. The Vorthik you trapped will eventually dig their way out, but they will be angry and less careful. That gives you an advantage. What about the leaders? Who runs this whole operation? Jake's expression became more serious. 5 leaders, 1 from each species. They watch the hunt from their command ship in orbit. If you survive long enough, to impress them, you might be allowed to join the consortium instead of being hunted. Maya thought about this information as she checked her weapon. The idea of joining the very species that had been trying to kill her seemed impossible, but it might be her only chance for long-term survival. What would I need to do to impress them? Kill more hunters, Jake said simply. Show them that humans are not the weak prey species they believe you to be. Prove that you deserve to be counted among the apex predators of the galaxy. The sound of digging grew louder from the passage behind them. The Vorthik were making progress breaking through the rubble. Maya stood up and checked her equipment, then looked at Jake. Can you travel? Yes, though not quickly. Where do you plan to go? Maya smiled grimly. To find more hunters to kill. If I'm going to be part of this hunt, I might as well win it. Jake stood up carefully, testing his wounded leg. You think like a true predator, Maya Rodriguez? Perhaps. There is hope for your species after all. They left the chamber together, heading deeper into the mountains. Behind them, the sounds of the Vorthik digging grew fainter. Maya had survived her first day on Zirian Prime and gained her first ally. Now the real hunt could begin. Maya and Jake had been traveling together for 3 days when they encountered the young Saurian. The creature was smaller than Kethvar, with brighter scales and less scarring on its hide. It sat alone beside a stream, drinking water and tending. To a wound on its arm dot, Jake growled low in his throat, his cybernetic systems charging up for combat. Saurian warrior, probably scouting for a larger pack. We should eliminate it before it can report our position. Maya held up her hand to stop. Him. Something about the creature's posture seemed different from the aggressive confidence she had seen in Kethvar. This one looked almost defeated, sitting by itself instead of hunting with others of its kind. Wait, she said quietly. Let me try something first. She stepped out from behind the rocks where they had been hiding, her weapon ready but not aimed, directly at the Saurian. The creature's head snapped up at her approach, and she could see fear in its yellow eyes, along with the expected hostility. I know you can understand me, Maya said calmly. I'm not here to fight unless you force me to. Why are you alone? Saurians are supposed to hunt in packs. The creature hissed and bared its teeth, but it did not attack. You are the human who killed Kethvar. The pack leaders say you fight without honor, using tricks and deception instead of strength. And what do you say? Maya asked, moving closer but keeping her distance from the creature's claws. The Saurian looked away, its scales shifting to darker colors. I say that Kethvar was arrogant and careless. He underestimated you because you are small and soft-looking. But I have watched you since then, and I see how you move, how you think. You are a predator, even if you do not look like one. Jake stepped out from behind Maya, his weapon systems fully charged. This is Veltar, youngest son of the pack leader. He was cast out 2 days ago for questioning the traditional hunting methods. The other Saurians consider him weak. Veltar's head turned toward Jake, and Maya could see anger flare in his eyes. I am not weak cybernetic wolf. I simply believe there are better ways to hunt than charging directly at every enemy. Maya felt a sudden understanding. This young Saurian reminded her of herself during her early days in the Marines, when she had been criticized for thinking too much instead of following orders blindly. She made a decision that would have seemed impossible a week ago. "Would you like to hunt with us?" she asked. Both Jake and Veltar stared at her in shock. Multi-species hunting parties were forbidden by the ancient traditions of the hunt. Each species was supposed to compete against all others, not work together. "You would trust a Saurian?" Jake asked. "They are our natural enemies." "You would accept help from prey species?" Veltar demanded at the same time. Maya looked at both of them and smiled. "I would accept help from anyone who can think beyond the old rules. The traditions of the hunt are designed to keep all of us weak by making us fight each other instead of working together. What if we change that?" Over the next few hours, Maya explained her plan. Instead of hunting randomly, they would target the leaders of each species, the ones who enforced the old traditions and kept the cycle of violence going. By eliminating the current leadership, they could position themselves to take control of the consortium. "It's impossible," Veltar said, but his scales were shifting to colors that Jake recognized as excitement. "The pack leaders are too strong, too well protected." "Individually, yes," Maya agreed. "But they're not expecting coordinated attacks from multiple species. They think we're all too proud and territorial to work together." Their first target was a group of Titan hunters who had claimed the mineral-rich valley system in the southern mountains. The Titans were 12 feet tall and covered in rock-like skin that could deflect most weapons. They moved slowly, but hit with devastating force. Maya studied the Titans for 2 days before attacking. She noticed that they relied heavily on their natural armor and rarely bothered to take cover. They also had a rigid hierarchy, with the largest Titan giving orders to the others. The attack came at dawn. Veltar used his speed and agility to get above the Titans on the canyon walls, while Jake positioned himself to cut off their escape route. Maya waited until the largest Titan was separated from the others, then activated her remaining explosive charges. The blast brought down part of the canyon wall, burying the Titan leader under tons of rock. While the others were distracted by their leader's death, Veltar dropped down among them with his claws extended. His natural weapons could not penetrate their skin, but he struck at their joints and eyes, the only vulnerable spots. Jake attacked from behind, his cybernetic enhancements allowing him to move faster than the Titans could react. His energy weapons focused on the same weak points that Veltar was targeting. Working together, they eliminated 4 Titans in less than 10 minutes. The surviving Titans retreated deeper into the valley, but not before one of them spoke to Maya. "You fight like no human we have encountered. The Stone Father will want to meet you." "Who is the Stone Father?" Maya asked. "Morduin, eldest of our kind and leader of the Titan delegation. He has ruled our people for 3 centuries. Maya exchanged glances with her companions. They had just made their first real enemy among the consortium leadership, but they had also gained valuable information about the power structure. Their next encounter was with the Nethys, the energy beings who could pass through solid matter. At will, Maya found them in an abandoned mining station where they were using the equipment to maintain their physical forms. The Nethys appeared as glowing, humanoid shapes made of pure energy. They could become solid or intangible at will, making them nearly impossible to hit with conventional weapons. Maya watched them for hours, trying to understand their weaknesses. She noticed that the Nethys became more solid when they were using their energy weapons, and they seemed to cluster around certain pieces of equipment. Jake confirmed her suspicions when he recognized the machinery. "Those are quantum stabilizers," he explained. "The Nethys need them to maintain coherent forms in this dimension. If we destroy the stabilizers, they'll be forced to retreat to their home dimension." The attack was swift and precise. Maya and Veltar provided covering fire, while Jake used his technical knowledge to sabotage the quantum stabilizers. The Nethys tried to stop them, but their energy weapons were less effective when they were forced to remain solid. When the stabilizers failed, the Nethys began to fade away. One of them managed to speak before disappearing completely. "You understand our technology better than expected, human. Alpha 7 will be interested in your capabilities." Maya was beginning to understand the pattern. Each species had leaders who had ruled for generations, maintaining their power through the traditional system of the hunt. By proving that she could defeat their followers, she was forcing these leaders to take notice. Their third target was a pack of Grim hunters who had been tracking them since the Canyon battle. Unlike Jake, these Grim were fully integrated with their cybernetic systems, more machine than animal. They moved in perfect coordination, sharing information through their network connections. The battle with the Grim was the most difficult yet. They adapted to Maya's tactics quickly, learning from each encounter and adjusting their strategies. Only her unpredictability and the combined efforts of her team allowed them to survive. In the end, they managed to eliminate 3 of the 5 Grim hunters by using electromagnetic pulse devices that Jake had constructed from salvaged parts. The devices disrupted the Grim's cybernetic systems, leaving them vulnerable to conventional attacks. As the surviving Grim retreated, their leader spoke to Jake in the electronic language of their people. Maya could not understand the words, but she could see the effect on her companion. His systems flickered, and his expression became troubled. "What did he say?" Maya asked. "Pack leader Grundar has issued a challenge. He wants to meet me in single combat to determine who leads the Grim delegation. If I refuse, I will be marked as a traitor to my species." Maya put her hand on Jake's shoulder. "You don't have to accept. We can find another way." Jake's glowing eyes fixed on her. "No, this is something I must do. But I will not fight alone. When I face Grundar, I will carry the strength of our pack with me." They made camp that night in a sheltered valley, planning their next moves. Maya realized that her simple plan for survival had become something much larger. She was not just trying to stay alive anymore. She was trying to change the entire structure of the consortium. Beltar curled up near the fire, his scales reflecting the flickering light. "Do you really think we can succeed? The leaders have ruled for centuries. They will not give up their power easily." Maya looked up at the alien stars above them. "Maybe not. But we've already proven that the old ways don't work. We've survived longer working together than any of us could have alone. That has to count for something." Jake's mechanical systems hummed quietly as he processed data from their encounters. "The consortium leaders will be watching us now. Our next actions will determine whether we are seen as a threat to be eliminated or a force to be reckoned with." Maya smiled grimly. "Then let's make sure they see us as both." The challenge from pack leader Grundar came at dawn. A sleek transport ship landed in the valley where Maya and her companions had made camp. The ship's hull was covered in the same cybernetic enhancements that marked the Grim species, and its weapon systems tracked their movements as they approached. Jake stood straighter as the ship's ramp lowered. "Whatever happens, do not interfere with the combat. Grim law requires that leadership challenges be settled in single combat." Maya watched as a figure emerged from the ship. Pack leader Grundar was larger than Jake, with more extensive cybernetic modifications. His left arm had been completely replaced with a weapon system, and his eyes glowed with the cold light of advanced targeting computers. Behind him came 4 other Grim warriors, their systems humming with barely contained power. "Jake Morrison," Grundar spoke in a voice that echoed with electronic distortion. "You have violated the ancient laws by hunting with other species. The pack calls for your death." Jake stepped forward, his own systems charging up. "I have found a new way to hunt, one that makes us stronger instead of weaker. The old laws no longer serve us." "You will die for those words," Grundar snarled, raising his weapon arm. The combat was brutal and swift. The 2 Grim warriors circled each other, their enhanced bodies moving faster than human eyes could follow. Energy weapons fired in rapid bursts, each shot capable of destroying a small building. Maya watched in fascination as Jake used tactics she had taught him, staying mobile and using the terrain to his advantage. But Grundar was older and more experienced. His cybernetic systems were more advanced, and he had the advantage of size and strength. Within minutes, Jake was wounded and bleeding mechanical fluid from several hits. Maya wanted to help, but she knew that interfering would only make things worse for Jake. Instead, she found herself analyzing the combat, looking for weaknesses in Grundar's fighting style. The pack leader was skilled, but he fought like all the other consortium hunters, with overwhelming force and no creativity. As Jake stumbled and fell, Grundar moved in for the killing blow. But Jake had learned more from Maya than just tactics. He had learned to think like a human, to use deception and misdirection as weapons. As Grundar's weapon arm came down, Jake rolled aside and activated a small device he had hidden in his damaged systems. The electromagnetic pulse was focused and powerful, designed to disrupt cybernetic systems at close range. Grundar's enhancements flickered and failed, leaving him vulnerable for the few seconds Jake needed to strike back. Jake's claws found the weak spots in the pack leader's armor, and green blood spilled onto the ground. Grundar looked down at his wounds with something like respect. "You have learned new ways to fight, Jake Morrison. Perhaps there is wisdom in your path after all." The pack leader's systems failed completely, and he collapsed to the ground. Jake stood over him, breathing heavily and leaking fluid from his own wounds. "I claim leadership of the Grim delegation by right of combat." The other Grim warriors bowed their heads in acknowledgement. Their new pack leader had proven himself worthy by the oldest law of their people. But Maya knew that the real test was still to come. A new ship appeared in the sky above them, larger and more heavily armed than the Grim transport. Maya recognized it as a Vorthic hive ship, its hull covered in the same black chitin as the insectoid warriors. The ship landed nearby, and dozens of Vorthic emerged in perfect formation. At their head was a creature even larger than the warriors Maya had encountered before. Its multiple eyes focused on her with obvious intelligence, and when it spoke, its voice buzzed with the sound of 1,000 insects. "I am Hive Queen Scrix, mother of the Vorthic swarm. You have killed many of my children, human. For this, you must die." Maya stepped forward, her weapon ready. "Your children tried to kill me first. I was just better at it than they were." "Impossible," Scrix replied. "The Vorthic are perfect hunters. We share one mind, one purpose. Individual species cannot defeat us." "Then you haven't been paying attention," Maya said. "We've been defeating you for days." What followed was not a battle in the traditional sense. Maya had learned from her earlier encounters with the Vorthic that fighting them directly was suicide. Instead, she used the same tactics that had worked in the cave, turning their coordination against them. She and her companions spread out, forcing the Vorthic to divide their attention. Maya used explosive charges to create chaos and confusion, while Jake's electromagnetic weapons disrupted their communication systems. Veltar moved through the swarm with his claws, targeting the smaller workers who supported the warriors. But the key to victory was Maya's understanding of the Vorthic's greatest weakness. They were so used to shared consciousness that they could not function effectively when separated from each other. By jamming their communication frequencies, she reduced them to individual insects instead of a coordinated swarm. Scrix herself was the last to fall. Cut off from her children, she fought with desperate fury, but lacked the adaptability that had kept Maya alive. When her body finally hit the ground, the surviving Vorthic fled in all directions. Their perfect order destroyed. Maya stood among the wreckage, breathing hard. 3 of the 5 consortium leaders were now dead, and she had allies in control of 2 species. But she knew that the hardest battles were still ahead. The ground shook as another ship landed nearby. This one was massive, built from the same stone-like material as the Titans themselves. When the cargo doors opened, Morduan emerged, followed by dozens of Titan warriors. The Stone Father was ancient beyond measure, his rocky skin marked with the scars of countless battles. He moved slowly, but with obvious power, each step leaving cracks in the ground beneath his feet. "Maya Rodriguez," he spoke in a voice like grinding boulders. "You have proven yourself a worthy opponent. But the Titans do not bow to any species. We will not be ruled by a soft skin, no matter how clever she may be." Maya looked up at the massive creature, trying to think of a way to defeat something that seemed indestructible. Then she remembered something from her training, a lesson about finding strength in unexpected places. "You're right," she said. "I can't defeat you in direct combat, but I don't need to." She pulled out a small device that Jake had constructed from salvaged parts. It was a seismic resonator designed to detect underground mineral deposits. But Maya had realized it could be used for something else entirely. She activated the device and aimed it at the ground, beneath Morduan's feet. The ultrasonic vibrations it produced were harmless to most materials, but stone was different. Stone could be shattered if you found the right frequency. Morduan looked down in surprise as cracks began to appear in the ground around him. The vibrations spread through the rocky soil, finding every weakness and stress point. Within seconds, the entire area began to collapse. The Stone Father tried to move, but his massive weight worked against him. The ground gave way beneath his feet, and he disappeared into a newly formed crater. The other Titans rushed to help their leader, but Maya had already moved on to her next target. The final ship to arrive was unlike any of the others. It seemed to be made of pure energy, its hull shifting and changing colors as it moved. When it landed, figures emerged that looked like living light, their forms barely solid enough to interact with the physical world. "I am Nethys Prime Alpha 7. The lead figure spoke in a voice like electronic music. "You have impressed us with your tactical abilities, human. We offer you a choice. Join us willingly or be destroyed." Maya looked at the energy beings surrounding her. She had learned something about them during her earlier encounter, something that might give her an advantage. "I have a better offer. Join me, and I'll show you something your species has never seen before." Alpha 7's form flickered with what might have been amusement. What could a primitive species like humanity possibly offer to beings of pure energy? Maya smiled and pulled out her last surprise, a device she had been working on since the battle. "With the quantum stabilizers, I can offer you something your people have been searching for since you first left your home dimension: true physical form." The device was crude, built from salvaged parts and powered by her suit's emergency battery. But it worked. When she activated it, the energy field around Alpha 7 began to stabilize, giving the creature a solid form for the first time in centuries. Alpha 7 looked down at his new body with wonder. "This is impossible. How did you learn to manipulate?" "Quantum fields? I learned from watching you," Maya replied. "Your people have been trying to solve this problem from the inside, but sometimes you need an outside perspective." The battle that followed was different from all the others. Instead of fighting to the death, Maya found herself in a complex negotiation. The Nethys wanted the technology she had demonstrated, but they also recognized her ability to think in ways they could not doubt in the end. Alpha 7 made a decision that surprised everyone. "You have proven yourself worthy of leadership, Maya Rodriguez. The Nethys will follow you, but only if you promise to share your knowledge with us." Maya looked around at the assembled forces. Jake led the Grim, Veltar represented the Saurians, and now Alpha 7 spoke for the Nethys. 3 of the 5 consortium species had acknowledged her authority. Their remaining Vorthik were scattered and leaderless, while the Titans were S. The assault on the command ship began at dawn. Maya stood on the bridge of the lead transport, watching the massive vessel grow larger as they approached. The ship was a kilometer long and bristled with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Its hull was covered in the armor and technology of all 5 consortium species, a symbol of their unity that had become a symbol of their oppression. Jake worked at the communication console, his cybernetic fingers dancing over the controls. Grim access codes accepted. We have a 30-minute window before the next security cycle. Veltar piloted the ship with the skill of his people, dodging between the automated defense platforms that surrounded the command vessel. His scales shifted to match the color of space around them, making the transport harder to target. Docking Bay 7 is clear. We can land there without triggering the proximity alarms. Alpha 7 stood nearby, his energy form flickering with concentration. The ship's AI system is more complex than we anticipated. It has been modified by each species over the centuries, creating layers of security protocols that contradict each other. Maya felt the transport shake as they entered the docking bay. Through the viewport, she could see the massive interior of the command ship, filled with technology she did not recognize. This was the heart of the consortium's power, the place where decisions were made that affected billions of lives across the galaxy. Remember the plan, she told her companions as they prepared to disembark. Jake and his team secure the bridge. Veltar takes the communication center. Alpha 7 handles the AI core. I'll go after the command protocols. They moved through the ship's corridors like a well-trained military unit, each group splitting off to handle their assigned objectives. The ship seemed almost deserted, with only automated systems and a skeleton crew of guards. Maya began to suspect that the consortium leaders had never expected anyone to actually reach their command vessel. The guards they encountered were members of all 5 species, but they fought as individuals rather than as a coordinated force. Maya realized that the consortium's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. The species were united by their shared love of hunting, but they had never learned to truly work together. Maya's team reached the command center without major resistance. The room was dominated by a massive display showing the positions of consortium forces throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of worlds were marked with the symbols of different species, each one a hunting ground or resource extraction site. At the center of the room stood a figure Maya had hoped never to see again. It was another human, but one who had been modified with cybernetic enhancements similar to the Grim. The man's eyes glowed with artificial light, and his voice carried the electronic distortion of advanced vocal processors. "Hello, Maya," the figure said. "I am Commander Ryan Davis, formerly of the Terran Space Navy. I have been waiting for you." Maya stared at the man in shock. "Ryan? But you're supposed to be dead. Your ship was destroyed in the Centauri conflict 3 years ago." "I was rescued by the consortium," Ryan replied. "They offered me a choice, death or service as their human liaison. I chose to live." Maya felt a mixture of anger and pity as she looked at her former friend. "You're working with the species that hunt humans for sport." "I'm working with the species that rule this part of the galaxy," Ryan corrected. "The consortium has offered humanity a place in their hierarchy. We could be hunters instead of prey if we prove ourselves worthy." "By betraying our own species?" Maya demanded. "By being realistic about our place in the galaxy," Ryan replied. "Humans are not the strongest or the fastest or the most technologically advanced, but we can be useful to those who are." Maya looked around the command center, seeing the displays. That showed human colonies marked as hunting preserves. "How many of our people have died because of information you provided?" Ryan's expression did not change. "The weak die so the strong can survive. It is the way of nature." "It's the way of predators," Maya said. But humans are more than that. We build things, we create, we work together. That's what makes us strong. Words, Ryan dismissed. The consortium leaders judge by actions, not speeches. You have impressed them with your ability to kill and lead, but can you make the hard decisions necessary to rule? Maya realized that this was the final test. The consortium leaders were not just watching to see if she could defeat their champions. They wanted to know if she would become like them, ruling through fear and violence. Ryan was offering her the chance to take control of the human colonies, to become a predator like the rest of them. I have a better idea, Maya said. Instead of joining the consortium, I'm going to change it. She activated the device, Alpha 7, had given her a quantum disruptor that could interfere with the ship's AI systems. The command center's displays flickered and went dark as the artificial intelligence that controlled the ship's weapons began to malfunction. What are you doing? Ryan demanded, reaching for his weapon. Something that should have been done centuries ago, Maya replied. I'm ending the Great Hunt. The battle that followed was brief but intense. Ryan had been enhanced with consortium technology, making him faster and stronger than a normal human. But Maya had learned to fight like a predator while keeping her humanity intact. She used tactics that Ryan could not predict, fighting with the creativity and adaptability that made humans unique. When Ryan finally fell, Maya felt no satisfaction in the victory. He had been a friend once, before the consortium had corrupted him. She knelt beside his body and closed his eyes, making a silent promise that no other human would have to make the choice he had made. The ship shook as Jake's team took control of the bridge. Through the communication system, Maya could hear the voices of her companions reporting their success. The Grimm had secured the weapon systems, the Saurians controlled communications, and the Nethys had taken over the AI core. But Maya knew that the real work was just beginning. Taking control of the command ship was only the first step. She had to convince the consortium worlds that change was possible, that the old ways of hunting and killing could be replaced with something better. She walked to the main communication console and activated the galaxy-wide broadcast system. Her voice would be heard on every consortium world, by every species that had participated in the Great Hunt. This is Maya Rodriguez, Supreme Huntress of the Apex Consortium, she began. The Great Hunt is over. The old leaders are dead or defeated. A new age has begun. She paused, looking out at the stars through the command center's viewport. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were listening to her words, trying to understand what had changed. For too long, we have defined strength by our ability to kill and dominate others, Maya continued. But true strength comes from working together, from building something greater than ourselves. The consortium will no longer be an alliance of predators hunting prey. We will be explorers, builders, protectors of the weak instead of their destroyers. The response was immediate and chaotic. Communication channels flooded with messages from consortium worlds, some expressing support, others demanding proof of her authority. Maya had expected this reaction. Change was never easy, especially for species that had built their entire cultures around the concept of the hunt. I know many of you will resist these changes, she said. You have been taught that killing is the only way to prove your worth. But I offer you something better, the chance to prove your worth by creating instead of destroying, by protecting instead of hunting. Jake appeared at her side, his cybernetic systems monitoring the incoming communications. Several worlds are already declaring independence from the consortium. The Titan mining colonies are refusing to acknowledge your authority. Let them, Maya replied. We'll prove that our way is better by example, not by force. Veltar joined them, his scales shifting to colors that indicated excitement. The younger generation of Saurians is responding positively to your message. They're tired of the endless cycles of violence. Alpha 7 materialized beside the communication console, his energy form more stable than Maya had ever seen it. The Nethys Collective is intrigued by your proposal. We have always been curious about other forms of existence. Maya looked at her. Companions, the beings who had become her family during the trials on Zirian Prime. They had all chosen to follow her, to believe in something better than the endless hunt. Now she had to prove that their faith was justified. What about the human colonies? She asked. Will Earth accept what we've done here? Jake's expression was serious. Your government will not be pleased that you've taken control of an alien. Military alliance. They may consider you a traitor. Maya thought about that possibility. She had joined the Terran Space Marines to protect humanity, and now she was in control of forces that could threaten her own species. But she had also seen what the consortium could become with the right leadership. Then we'll have to prove to them that we're not a threat, she said. The first thing we're going to do is release all human prisoners and close the hunting preserves. After that, we'll establish trade relationships instead of predator-prey dynamics. The work ahead would be enormous. Maya would have to rebuild the consortium from the ground up, changing the culture of dozens of species while dealing with resistance from traditionalists. She